2008 wasn't a financial crisis. It was the moment reality broke, the moment the global economy died. And everything that's happened since has been an elaborate illusion designed to hide that death. You think we recovered. You think the economy healed. You think things went back to normal. But what if I told you that nothing has been real since September 2008? That we've been living inside a financial simulation held together by money printing and collective delusion? That the markets you see, the growth you hear about, the recovery they celebrate, it's all fake. By the end of this video, you'll understand why 2008 never ended, why we're still in the crash, and why the life support system keeping everything alive is about to fail. Let me take you back to what really happened. Not the sanitized version they teach in economics classes, the real story, the one they don't want you to understand. In the years leading up to 2008, Wall Street discovered something incredible. They discovered financial alchemy. They discovered how to turn garbage into gold. Here's how it worked. Banks would give mortgages to anyone. No income verification, no down payment, no credit check. They called them ninja loans. No income, no job, no assets. Literally giving $500,000 to people who couldn't prove they earned minimum wage. Why would banks do something so reckless? Because they weren't holding the risk. They were selling it. They would bundle these toxic mortgages together into something called mortgage-backed securities. Take 1,000 terrible loans, package them together, and suddenly you've created a diversified investment product. Then they take it to the ratings agencies. And here's where the scam gets beautiful. The ratings agencies, who were paid by the banks creating these products, would slap AA ratings on them, the same rating as U.S. Treasury bonds, the safest investment grade possible. So you've got garbage mortgages given to people who will obviously default, packaged into securities, stamped with 808 ratings and sold to pension funds, retirement accounts, insurance companies, foreign governments. Everyone thought they were buying safety. They were actually buying time bombs. But it gets worse. Wall Street then created something called collateralized debt obligations, CDOs. They would take the riskiest tranches of mortgage-backed securities, the stuff that was most likely to fail, bundle those together, and get them rated to A2. It was fraud, mathematical fraud, statistical impossibility marketed as safe investment. And when people started to notice, when analysts started questioning how subprime garbage could possibly be rated AA, Wall Street did something even more insane. They created credit default swaps, insurance on the bonds. Except the insurance was being sold by companies that didn't have the money to pay claims if things went wrong. AIG, the massive insurance company, was selling billions of dollars in credit default swaps without holding reserves to cover potential losses. They were collecting premiums on insurance they could never pay out. It was a house of cards built on a foundation of lies. And everyone involved knew it. They just thought they'd be able to sell their position before it collapsed. This is what people miss about 2008. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a failure of regulation or oversight. It was deliberate fraud on a scale that had never been attempted before. Wall Street created fake assets, got them fake ratings, sold them with fake insurance, and when it all inevitably exploded, they claimed nobody could have seen it coming. But people did see it coming. Analysts were screaming warnings. Whistleblowers were being ignored. The signs were everywhere. The system didn't fail because of ignorance. It failed because fraud was more profitable than honesty. And when fraud is rewarded and honesty is punished, you get catastrophe. September 2008, Lehman Brothers collapses. The fourth largest investment bank in America evaporates overnight. Bear Stearns is gone. Merrill Lynch is sold in a fire sale. AIG, the insurance giant, is hours from total failure. The entire global financial system is freezing up. Banks won't lend to each other because nobody knows who's holding the toxic assets. Credit markets seize. The stock market is in free fall. The world is watching capitalism eat itself in real time. And this is the moment. This is the moment where the world had a choice. They could let the system fail, let the banks that committed fraud collapse, let the executives who built the house of cards lose everything, restructure the debt, reset the system, start over with something sustainable, or they could save the system, print money, bail out the banks, pretend nothing fundamental was broken, kick the can down the road and hope somehow things would magically fix themselves. Guess which option they chose. The government and central banks decided that the banks were too big to fail, that the system was too important to let collapse, that saving the financial sector was more important than justice, accountability, or long-term stability. So they did something that had never been done before. They created trillions of dollars out of thin air and handed it to the institutions that caused the crisis. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet went from under $1 trillion to $4.5 trillion almost overnight. They called it quantitative easing, printing money to buy toxic assets from banks at face value. Think about what that means. The banks made fraudulent loans, packaged them into fraudulent securities, sold them with fraudulent ratings, and when those securities became worthless, The government bought them at full price with printed money. The losses were socialized. The profits remained privatized. The people who caused the crisis got bonuses. The people who lost their homes got nothing. This is the moment reality broke. Because they proved that consequences don't exist at the top. They proved that fraud works if you're big enough. They proved that the rules don't apply to the people who write them. And they proved something even more important. They proved that the economy no longer functions based on fundamentals. It functions based on central bank intervention. From 2008 onward, we stopped living in a market economy and started living in a managed simulation. Every time the market tries to fall, the Fed prints money. Every time banks get in trouble, they get bailouts. Every time debt becomes unsustainable, they lower interest rates to make it affordable. The market isn't pricing risk anymore, it's pricing central bank policy. Stocks don't go up because companies are profitable. They go up because there's nowhere else for printed money to go. Real estate doesn't cost more because housing is scarce. It costs more because interest rates are artificially suppressed and investors are buying with leveraged money that shouldn't exist. None of it is real. It's a simulation sustained by money printing. And the moment they stop printing, the simulation collapses. But here's the problem. They can't stop printing. Because the debt has grown so large that even the interest payments require new borrowing. In 2008, total U.S. debt was $10 trillion. Today, it's $36 trillion. In 16 years, they've added $26 trillion to the debt. And the interest on that debt is now over $1 trillion per year. They have to print just to pay the interest. And every new dollar they print requires more debt. And more debt requires more interest. And more interest requires more printing. It's an infinite loop, a perpetual motion machine of monetary debasement. And it can only end one way. But before it ends, let me show you what this simulation has done to your life. In 2008, the median home price in America was $220,000. Today, it's $420,000, almost double. Did houses get twice as good? Did construction costs double? Did wages double? No, the currency was debased. Money was printed, and that printed money flowed into assets. The people who owned assets before the printing got wealthier. The people who didn't own assets got priced out forever. This is the Cantillon effect on steroids, the biggest wealth transfer in human history. From the young to the old, from the working class to the asset class, from you to them. College tuition. In 2008 was $25,000 per year at private universities. Now it's $60,000. Healthcare costs have tripled. Food costs have doubled. But your wage has barely moved. Because wages are the last thing to adjust in an inflationary system. The money has to circulate through the entire economy before it reaches workers. By the time you get your 3% raise, prices have already risen by 8%. You're perpetually behind, and the gap keeps widening. This is why your generation can't afford what your parents could. It's not because you're not working hard enough. It's because you're living in a post-2008 simulation where assets are inflated by printed money and wages are suppressed by real economics. The game is rigged, and it was rigged in September 2008 when they decided to save the banks instead of saving the system. Now here's what nobody wants to talk about. The people who caused the crisis got rewarded. Not a single Wall Street executive went to jail. Not one. They paid some fines, sure, fines that were a fraction of the profits they made. Cost of doing business. Meanwhile, 10 million Americans lost their homes. 40% of household wealth evaporated. Retirement accounts were decimated. An entire generation's economic future was destroyed. And the people responsible got bailouts and bonuses. This is what people miss when they talk about 2008. It wasn't just a financial crisis, it was a moral crisis. It was proof that the system is designed to protect power, not people. They literally proved that you can commit fraud on a massive scale, crash the global economy, destroy millions of lives, and not only avoid punishment, but get rewarded. The message was clear crime pays if you're systemically important. The rules don't apply if you're too big to fail. And that message has shaped every financial decision since. Why would banks be careful with risk if they know they'll be bailed out? Why would executives care about long-term stability if they can cash out before the crash? A moral hazard isn't a theoretical concept anymore. It's the foundation of the entire financial system. So where are we now, 16 years later? We're in a worse position than we were before 2008. The debt is higher, the money printing is more extreme, the wealth inequality is more severe, the asset bubbles are larger, and the tools they used to fix 2008. They're already deployed. Interest rates are near zero. The Fed balance sheet is massive. They've already played their cards. So what happens when the next crisis hits? When the debt finally becomes unsustainable? When inflation spins out of control? When foreign countries stop accepting dollars? They have no ammunition left. They've already printed trillions. They've already suppressed rates to nothing. They've already bailed out everything that matters to them. The next crisis won't have a solution. Because the solution to 2008 was to delay the problem, not fix it. And you can't delay forever. This is why 2008 never ended. We didn't recover, we didn't heal, we didn't restructure, we just printed money and pretended everything was fine. And that pretending is about to run out of runway. The simulation is cracking. You can see it in the inflation numbers they can't hide anymore. You can see it in the wealth gap that's becoming politically unsustainable. You can see it in the global rejection of dollar dominance. The life support is failing. And when it fails completely, the crash we avoided in 2008 is going to happen anyway. Except this time it'll be worse, because we added $26 trillion of debt to cushion the fall. So what do? You recognize that the recovery was fake, that the growth was artificial, that the stability was an illusion, and you position yourself for reality reasserting itself. Because reality always wins. It might take 16 years, it might take 20, but math doesn't care about politics or narratives or how badly we want something to work. The debt is unpayable. The printing creates inflation. The inflation destroys purchasing power. The purchasing power destruction creates political instability. The instability destroys trust. And when trust dies, the currency dies. This is the cycle. And we're in the late stages. In the next video, I'm going to show you the exact moment that started all of this. August 15th, 1971. The night reality was severed. The night money stopped being real and became pure policy. If this video showed you something that can't be unseen, leave a comment with these words, "The simulation is failing." Share this with someone who still believes the recovery was real, because the biggest lie isn't that 2008 was a crisis, it's that 2008 ended. History has the answers. I'm just showing you where to look. See you in the next one.